Hey guys, welcome back to the Intimacy Liberation Army. I am Duke DeLate. This is your one-stop shop for making dating fun. We're in the middle of the Be More Attractive series, and today's topic is how to look more intelligent in social situations. Let's just jump into it. Showing your intelligence in social situations isn't about looking like you know everything or trying to prove that you have like an intense deep knowledge on something. A lot of social situations are really just vibing with the other humans at whatever level they're at, and it's important in order to look like you know what you're talking about. It's important to be open. It's important to be curious and considerate of what other people are saying and thinking and trying to talk about. I find myself as a coach, guys will ask me all these questions about like girls, all they want to talk about is like current events and astrology, and like I don't really understand any of that stuff and da, 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 right. You don't have to like go take a bunch of, I actually did, I went and go take a certification course in astrology because it was such a big topic, and I didn't really learn much. But it's not really about that. It's not about showing off how much is in your brain. It's not about showing off how spiritually connected you are, or how much you know about, like Snapchat gossip, right? Like, it's about being open to how how the people in front of you are expressing emotions, and being curious about them and what makes them act and interact in that way. So if you want to appear more intelligent, what was the guy? I forgot his name, but he said, be, yeah, if you want to be interested, be interesting, or be interesting, be interested, right? Um, if you want to be considerate of the other people in your sphere, then consider the following tips. We got like 6 or 7 of them. I forgot how many are on here. So the first one is be prepared for the conversations that are likely to occur. If you are going to a place that and this was about this was the same type of thing I was talking about when showing up to venues and being prepared for the dress, right? Like, if you know that you're going to a cocktail party, that you're talking about art, right, then you should probably know a little bit about the art and be able to kind of talk about your feelings behind it. You don't have to go pretend you're an art scholar. You don't have to pretend like you're deeply studied and all this stuff. I was at this party, I guess it was a couple months ago, with all of these music people after a concert, and we went back to this chick's house, and we were just kind of partying and talking, and one of the guys there was just like music nerd, and he could tell you about all this like iambic, no, iatonic or whatever, and syncopated rhythm, da 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 da, whatever. He was talking all this shit, and in his case, he was just a nerd. Like he had literally nothing else to talk about because he was like the guy who studies this shit, and he was showing off like basically his core passion, right? And so it was kind of acceptable. But there are a lot of these types of guys that they show up to the parties and they're like trying to look down their nose at other people, and like, look how intelligent or sophisticated or spiritual or whatever I am, and that's really just off-putting. And it yeah, people can point at you and be like, oh yeah, the guy's really smart, but it doesn't do anything for your social status. It doesn't do anything for your rapport with other people. So yeah, read up on the subject. Watch a couple of videos on YouTube to make sure that you're well versed in what's going on, and it'll allow you to kind of participate more in the conversations that are ensuing at the place, right? When you go to a normal bar, you can kind of get a read of the room. When you go to your same local place over and over and over again, you understand the kinds of people that show up and what nights. Like industry nights, a lot of restaurant people will show up and they'll talk about like community college things because they're of that age, right? Their other interests are, going to school for bullshit and trying to make a living, off of a minimum wage plus tips type of job. So you can sort of talk to people about that type of thing who are in that place, and then you can relate better with the people who are in the spot that you're going. So you just kind of think ahead and kind of figure out what the prevailing subject matter is, and then you'll do pretty well. Tip number 2 is to develop your listening skills. Knowing how to listen attentively is crucial skill. It's a crucial skill for coming across as intelligent, because if you kind of check out and you trail off and you're not paying attention, like, people don't feel like you're listening, that you're paying attention, that things that they have to say are valuable, and very often that'll just cut your rapport out at the knees. So if you listen actively and you ask questions specifically about the things that they're talking about, then you'll appear at least curious, and that curiosity can transfer over into people assuming that you are a guy who likes to like, you kind of worldly, what's the word I'm looking for, you're a guy who likes to experience multiple things in the people realm, and they can look at you as somebody who gets it, right? It may not amp up your intelligence quotient so much, but it does make you look socially smart. It makes you look kind of emotionally intelligent when you're able to give people the space to convey, and then you're curious about what's going on in their heads because of it, and then you're making conclusions. It's like, oh yeah, that guy's sharp, right? If you show an interest in somebody else's viewpoint and you're actively listening, you can make them feel that they're teaching you something, or that you're a sponge for the kinds of things going on. And then when you kind of nod your head and well, I mean, you're not going to act like it. You're not going to just nod your head because you don't understand, but when you nod your head and you're constantly putting the concepts together that they're trying to convey, they appear to you as somebody who's intelligent enough, at least at their level, to understand the things that are coming out of their mouth, and they'll kind of accept your vibe because you're affirming theirs, right? Along with the active listening thing, Jack's did a video for active listening. Check the link or the card or whatever, because he's got a lot of good tips in that one. But along with the active listening thing, you're not waiting for your turn to speak. You're not going to go cut people off or make them feel invalidated for what they're saying, because you want them to think that you're smarter than you are. Then you want them to see that at least you're at their level. You got to kind of pace it before you can lead it. And chances are you probably are smarter than they are. So once they give you the trust that you're on their level, then you can kind of lead them down a path to where they're learning something, and they can get a lot of value out of you. Tip number 3, maintain an open mind. If you want to come across well informed in a discussion, there's a lot of arguments in the communication world to say that you should always have like a pretty hardcore opinion. You should be able to back yourself up with facts and everything. But when we're talking about the social aspect of everything, you kind of want to like blend in, and at first, right? It's like the pace and lead thought process again. You get to the point where they have a rapport with you and they understand that you're at their level, and then you can move on and open up new avenues of the conversation. So if they're saying something that you're disagreeing with, you want to kind of listen to their argument and their story and their experience with it, because even if you have a better answer, like guys like us who study psychology and study social dynamics a lot, we have a lot of good theories about how humans interact, but it doesn't necessarily match with the experience of the people that are in front of us. So it's better just to listen, have an open mind, to add thoughts into it that kind of keep them talking, so you get a full picture of what's going on, and then you're like, well, what about this? And then you kind of add your own little spin on it, rather than being like, nope, that's wrong. Like, you're uninformed. Like, you don't want to cut people off because it breaks rapport again. In order to have a productive conversation with somebody who has like a different viewpoint, you got to consider all of the things of their viewpoint, and then kind of sit back. You watch guys who are really good at debate do this, like Sam Harris. He'll just sit there and be like, he'll formulate, and he'll like, yeah, no, that makes sense. but have you considered, right? And then he'll launch into his little counter argument, and in that way, he's not only making the person feel heard and safe and listened to, but he's also, when he seeks to disagree with them, he also seeks to educate the other person on his own perspective. Like they're sharing perspectives, and there's a lot of respect there, and it can keep a lot of the rapport that you've built from doing the active listening stuff, and as you begin to lead in a different direction. Next tip is constantly asking questions. You don't want to ask questions like interview style questions, right? You want to ask questions specifically about the subject that they're talking about, probing deeper for their knowledge, and not only their knowledge, not the things that they know, but the things that they feel about it, what that means for them, what kind of behavior it makes them choose, right? Some girls will sit around and they'll talk about, oh yeah, Mercury is rising, and obviously there's a Leo in my moon, and right? And they'll say all this stuff, right? And they not only do they believe this stuff, but they spend a lot of time delving down the paths of astrological stuff, and they know a lot about this learning model or this theory that whatever you think about it, they're invested. And so if you go in and you start asking, like, okay, well, what does that mean for you, right? So, well, because I'm a Pisces, but I got a Leo in my moon or whatever, then that means I do this, but then sometimes I do this. I'm like, oh, cool. So like knowing that, and like having done your tarot or horoscope or whatever the hell you did today, knowing that, like, how are you going to change how you take on the world? Like, how does that change your responsibility because you have this more broad knowledge of who you are? And then when you ask that kind of question, they respond like, oh yeah, well, I mean, obviously, like, and then they go on into their things, and you get to know a lot about them and how they believe, their beliefs about the world, like the beliefs about how people treat them, and you can really create a lot of connection, a lot of rapport, even if you don't necessarily agree with the fucking baseline that they're talking about. What they're truly talking about is how they emotionally take on the world and what filters they see it through. And so if you use that, by being open, by asking questions, probing deeper, they can create a connection with you because they feel like you understand them. And when you do ask those questions, you can actually understand them. Don't ask questions that can be answered with a simple, like, yes, no, one word answers, anything like that. You should ask things that kind of make people elaborate what they were saying, because if you can do that, then they'll keep talking and you'll learn more about them, and then you'll have a lot more to relate with and grab onto. Next tip is participate in the discussion. If people are talking, if there's multiple people in a group, participate. It's one thing to sit there and observe and be like, okay, yeah. And then it's another thing to be like, you know what, I have a similar experience, and then, add your thing and then back off and let people keep ping-ponging back and forth, and then come back in when it's appropriate. You'll get a feel for this the more and more you do it. But if you don't participate, you just kind of sit back, you start being the weird one because you're not sharing. Even if the people around you are sharing things that are relatively stupid or things that you don't necessarily relate with, you still have to, like, participate in order to be a part of the vibe, in order to be a part of the vibe of what's going on with the group. You can accomplish this by relating your own anecdotes, like that, like for me, that's like this, or you can ask a question that would lead to a suggestion, like, all right, well, like, it sounds like that wasn't the best way to handle it. Like, how do you think you're going to do that better next time? Like, knowing what you know now. And they'll be like, oh, that I haven't thought about that. And then they'll start talking about it. Like, yeah, that sounds good. And then you can affirm what they're saying, or add your little pieces, and it lets you be a part of the vibe and the flow of the conversation. If you do come in there, especially in a group scenario when you haven't established a lot of rapport yet, like, try to get straight to the point. Like, say what you need to say, and then kind of step out for a second and watch what happens with the vibe. Because if you interrupt other people who have a different like social status than you in that space, and you kind of don't know who's the ones that currently have the respect and the ones who are going to be the decision makers in that crew or whatever, it can come across as super rude, and you can get X'd out really quick by offending or stepping on the toes of the people who, the more egoic ones who like the spotlight. You don't want to like steal it from them. So just pepper things in and see what's going on, and then once you kind of get a read of the group, then you can move in more comfortably. Just like any other rapport based thing that we talk about, is like you got to start slow and then kind of increase your volume as you move on. As far as intelligence is concerned, your body language should be very affirming. Like, you should nod your head a lot. You should be like thinking about what they're trying to say, and you should put things together. Like, so does that mean, right? And then you kind of prompt them to keep moving on and giving you more data to work with. If you don't have a lot of confidence in your intelligence about whatever subject they're talking about, feel free to like ask questions and be, take the student frame and be like, I don't really know anything about that. Like, all right, so tell me how specifically that works in this situation. And then people can kind of educate you, and they feel that like teacher moment where they feel more important because they're able to show you something cool. Some people will do it from an arrogant place, and they'll try to make you feel like you're stupid for not being a part of it. That's okay, because the more data that you get in that conversation, the more you've learned, and then you can show your gratitude, appreciate them for educating you, and then you're like, actually, I'm not from this world. I don't know what's going on here, but like I'm super curious. Like, what does that mean to you, and why are people drawn to that? And oh well. Actually, it's like a whole big thing, and we got our own terminology, and and they'll tell you, and now you're armed with more data. You're like, thanks, man. Like, I really didn't know it was that deep. And they go, oh yeah, no, there's a lot to worry. I'll give you this book, or I'll point you to this website, or watch the videos on this, and you can, whatever. And then you can still generate rapport and connection and trust with being the student, taking the student frame. Instead of dwelling on any sort of lack of knowledge that you may have, just consider what you do know, offer it when you can, and then take the student frame to handle it for the things that you don't. And you're not expected to have answers to everything. It's acceptable to admit when you don't know things and you need clarification, or that you would like to be kind of educated on an entire thing. And you're rarely going to get thrown out of a conversation just because you don't know something. But you're going to still appear more intelligent by being super interested, because you're the type of guy who is interested in all of this random shit that they're talking about. So that's my tips on being appearing more intelligent in the conversation. And that's really going to add on to just your attractiveness level. You pair it with some of the other things that we had earlier in the video series, where you're working on your sense of humor, you're working on your style, you're working on your active listening, you're working on your ability to show your intelligence. All of these things kind of paired up and coupled together, mishmashed together, they're gonna add to your overall vibe of being more attractive, and that's what the series is all about. So we do this every damn day, these videos on this channel. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. If you have any more questions, drop them in the comments or hit me up on the Instagram, and I'll try to get deeper or more clear on anything that I wasn't clear about. And if there's anything you want me to talk about, feel free to send me a message or drop it in the comments, and we will shoot videos on that. And like I said, we do it every damn day. So until then, till tomorrow, stay awesome.